You set yourself up for that one.
I didn't set myself up for that. I was like, man, I got I'm sorry about the overhead.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here for me.
Look, I'm not. When I was working with intimate lesson, it's actually really good.
Yes, sir.
I'm just pissed off.
I know you should be.
That's right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think I could.
Yeah, sorry. Somebody said it.
Hey, Dan.
Do I?
Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to get started on the House Regulated Industry Subcommittee, Lottery Oversight and Gaming. We have House Bill 1197 and the author, Chairman Powell's, at the podium. Go ahead, sir.
I'm thanking y'all very well. Maybe we'll have another committee, but we've got a quorum, I think, with 3. You know, I've consistently had to do COAM bills over the years. It was kind of getting down into the lightweights. We've done so much good work to clean up that industry and to create a better playing field over the years. But sometimes we still don't have the cooperation, I think, that would merit common sense from the policymakers that control the COAM divisions. And there's a couple of parts in this bill that does that. And it seems almost ridiculous to say that we got to legislate what they could do about dart games and pool tables. Pool tables are a COAM machine. They take coins. So are these dart games today. And you've got a lot of the jurisdictions, the restaurants and the sports clubs and, you know, these places, and they have dart tournaments. They have billiard tournaments. We ain't got no dart tournaments up where I come from, but we sure have got billiard tournaments, quite honestly. And what they've asked for is to allow them, the purveyor of those establishments, when they have a dart tournament or they organize a dart tournament or a billiard tournament, to be able to give away gift certificates. Not cash, but gift certificates. That's in one part of the bill. I think you'll find that in Section 1. Then if you go to Section 2, and I got some stuff that's spread over Sections 2, Section 6, Section 7. And this is about progressive punishment. When the COAM division at the lottery, by regulating these folks, they're in charge of any infractions of the law and regulations. But somehow over the years they have developed a system where, and we call it stacking in the law. And I'll give you a good for instance. If there's an establishment that's breaking the law and say they're paying out cash, well, instead of charging them on the spot, they'll hold that offense, and then they'll watch at them and see if they do it again, then they get them a second charge, well, then they get them the third time. That way it's a full suspension. It's not a progressive punishment. You know, everything needs to be, I think, the infractions of law and rule and reg in a lot of cases, unless it's some heinous crime, it needs to be a progressive system. Even in the alcohol business, a store makes a mistake, they sell alcohol to a minor, well, they pay a penalty, they pay a fine, they get a suspension. The same if they do it the second time, or they get a suspension or a revocation or a third. So this is a progressive behavioral system in that. And you'll see that covered in Section 2, Section 6, and in Section 7. It just makes it a requirement that they do progressive discipline. Then if you'll look on Section 3, Section 4, and Section 5. This is the stacking offenses. It deals with OSHA hearings. Basically clarifies that OSHA hearing officers, that those can be, that there'll be appeal to the Business Court of Fulton County. And the direct appeal of the hearing officers in Section 6. It deals with that same procedural traps. And then Section 8. Section 8 is a little bit more difficult for me to explain, but I'm sure Mr. Snyder can do a far better job than I will in that. But in that business that you have, some of the bigger fish that play, they'll file charges against a contract. And at that point, some of it may be frivolous, because what it does, it ties up the proceeds that come out of those COAM machines. And what we're saying in here, that if a hearing judge, if they rule that those charges are frivolous, then that disgorgement of those funds will go to the lottery and not to that person. And that, quite frankly, is what this bill does, and I'm sure that Mr. Snyder will clarify that last part in more succinct detail than I did. Be glad to stand for questions on darts and billiards and progressive discipline and whatever else that y'all have questions for. If not, I'll yield this podium.
It does not look like you have any questions, so you might have hit the bullseye with that
Very
presentation.
good.
I think we do have one speaker on the legislation. Mr. Snyder, if you want to come up, you can come to the podium, to the table, whatever's more comfortable. And I do have a question on that last part from you.
Okay. Members of the committee, my name is Les Schneider. I represent the Georgia Amusement and Music Operators Association, and we would certainly be appreciative for support of this legislation. As Representative Powell indicated, we've come a long way in the coin-operated music machine world. We certainly are ahead of every other state in the country in terms of the success of the program. But the trouble with COAM, as it is with businesses, if you stand still, then you die. And you got to keep improving on what we're doing, and we have improvements to do. These improvements are far less controversial than a lot of the other ones you all have dealt with over the years, but you still have to continue to make those steps forward to improve matters. Progressive discipline doesn't sound very sexy, except if you're the location owner or the master who feels that they've had charges stacked against them and they've had citations without an ability to correct behavior, whether it's one of their employees or something else they have done wrong, and not being able to do it. Representative Powell's analogy to the alcohol laws is very apt. You all have dealt with maybe underage sales that would occur in a store. Well, if every time that occurred, they held the charges back and then went to revoke the license, it's not the way business people ought to be dealt with. So what we're calling for here is very clear progressive discipline that's set out in the law for various offenses, and it's mentioned 3 or 4 or 5 times, and that was done just to make sure there's no confusion that there are a number of strikes and then you're out. But you don't get to you don't strike out on the first pitch. The darts and the pool tables, I'm kind of embarrassed that we got to talk about this, but we had a situation where the position of the agency at one point was you could have a dart tournament and you could have a pool tournament in a business that didn't have COAMs, but you couldn't have a dart tournament or a pool tournament where you did have COAMs. This is astounding to me, and it was also pretty frustrating to the people who had those machines and saw around the country that these tournaments in bars and restaurants, whatever, frankly, are very popular. People come, they watch, they participate, and just to make sure that we're consistent with what we've always done, nobody's winning a cash prize. If they win a non-cash prize, whether it's a gift certificate, a Harley Davidson, or whatever it is they're going to win, but it's, again, a non-cash. But these competitions are they're very big around the country, but they've really been stymied here in many respects. I want to make sure I mention one other issue on Section 2, page 3, lines 54 to 63 of the bill. We talk about the lottery in coordination with the advisory board implementing a system for location owners to report the number of non-cash redemption of lottery tickets. And this is being done primarily to make sure that, number one, we can monitor how much lottery tickets are really sold through non-cash redemption, but secondly, to make sure that location owners can have better protection in terms of having those records. So in case somebody from the lottery comes and says, well, what did you do for your redemption? And, they say, well, we did lottery tickets, we did merchandise in the store, we did gift cards, we did replays. Many times there are many businesses that don't keep as stellar records as others. So the thought was if they would do this reporting on a quarterly basis, then they would have the records, or at least the information, so that they wouldn't get hit with a citation or perhaps another penalty. I have heard some objection from some folks about this, and perhaps this idea is too early in coming. And if ultimately through the process this goes away, I think it's regrettable. But if it's putting too much pressure on the location owners, then perhaps this is something that, as the bill goes through the process, it may come out. But it is done for the purpose that I have had numbers of people come to my office who are location owners who have done the redemption, I believe correctly, but they get hit with fines and other penalties. And frankly, I think it's an overkill, and I think it's unfair, but this would help them in that regard. But maybe that's not the best solution for all people, and I'll certainly take it upon myself to talk to all of the associations of convenience store owners and other business owners who are location owners to see if they would like to have this in or out, and if they think it should be out, then obviously I'll certainly communicate that to the full committee.
Let me stop you right there just a second. So
Sure.
is there a possibility, because I've never worked on the counter side of it, but is there a possibility, because you're saying money that's been redeemed for lottery tickets?
Right.
Is there not it seems to me like the lottery could add a step in their process for them to mark if it's been redeemed, whether it's when you're actually.
Is whether you buy it because you pay $1 for the ticket or you've gotten it through non-cash redemption.
Yes.
Could there be another button on the machine that could help the store owner keep that kind of records? You're singing my song.
Yeah.
I mean, I have raised the issue.
Well, I guess it's got to be through their POS system, though. Because it doesn't communicate with the lottery other than if they win.
Well, the selling of tickets, clearly on the lottery software, that when you sell tickets, they keep track of how many tickets they sell. So the question is, how much of an expense would it be
To add a line item.
to add a line item that would say this is done with non-cash redemption or not? And maybe it's a longer conversation, but I don't like people to get in trouble simply because they're doing the right thing, but they don't have the documentation to show I sold $5,000 worth of lottery tickets through non-cash redemption. I sold $10,000 just because people paid me money to buy those tickets. Again, we are talking about technology, which is probably my weakest suit in the world besides directions. But at the end of the day, I think it would be good to help store owners to be able to monitor the information. You all passed the gift card law last year, right? So gift cards are used. It's going to be easier to monitor the gift cards that are given as non-cash redemption, either through a kiosk or through another software, and that's going to be easier for location owners to say, here's what I did with my redemption. You all have left it as of July 1st, either a gift card, a lottery product, or a replay. So it's down to 3 things.
Yeah, and I think just from an outsider looking in, it would show the value of the COAM to the lottery as well, being able to illustrate that COAM is responsible for this many lottery tickets. So, I mean, I do think there's value there for the store owners to make sure that, as we always have the conversations of lottery tickets and COAM and I think it's important to show that value. So
I would always hope that there's an interrelationship, that one helps the other. And again, it would be nice to have some hard statistics on how many lottery tickets actually are sold through non-cash redemption. And I believe the lottery should be supportive of those goals. The issue that Representative Powell talked about, Section 8, page 8 and 9, this disgorgement issue is basically being done to avoid frivolous litigation. Under the current law, when there is a dispute and you go to arbitration, everything is frozen in terms of the location stays, the dispute is tried to be resolved. And I would say as the vast majority of disputes, I think, are bona fide disputes, but there is And there are parties, both on the location owner side and on the master side, that will try to create a frivolous litigation to try to break a contract or to try to elongate a contract unnecessarily. What this says is that if the hearing officer finds that it was a frivolous litigation, it never should have been brought, that the party who was the frivolous party will have the monies that were generated from that location, their portion, will be disgorged from them and given to the lottery. We didn't want to work it out that we're going to give it to the other side or whatever. The feeling was we just want to discourage this practice, and if the beneficiary has to be pre-K and Hope, obviously that's a good contribution to make. So that's the essence of that. But it is a worthwhile penalty, and it would have some teeth to it to discourage frivolous litigation, and that's the reason for it. I think that's the essence of it. Again, this bill may not be as sexy as some of the other COAM bills, and again, if there are other issues that come up during the process that we can get consensus on that will improve the system, I know on behalf of the GMOA, and I'm sure most of all the other stakeholders, we want to do that and move the thing forward. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
You do have a question, number 18?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly appreciate you here. Just assure me, if you will, how can we be sure that a dart tournament or a billiard tournament winnings aren't a way to allow a bad actor, master, licensee to give cash inducements to a locational retailer? How do we assure it?
I think if you look in the wording of the legislation, it can only be put on by the location owner, and they cannot receive any money from the master license holder. Let me go to that section. If you look on line 23, Representative Mitchell, it says, a location owner or location operator shall be authorized to conduct billiards or dart tournaments on the premises for which the licenses has a contract for the installation of machine. Such tournament may be conducted on the amusement machines. They may award prizes, non-cash redemption. So we actually took out, in previous years, we had this provision where it said the location owner or the master could do it. And the feeling was we wanted to avoid what you just brought out, like what if the master is trying to do these things as an inducement to get his machines there. So therefore, this was left only to the location licensee, not the master.
Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
all right, nice work. And I have one final question. In the land of frivolous disputes,
Yes.
of all the disputes that occur, do the masters usually win? Do the locations usually win? How does that usually split up in those disputes, I wonder?
Well, I could always say it's because of the quality of the lawyer on the particular side, but that's not the case. I would say that there are no statistics that I'm aware of that would tell you who wins the majority of those cases. I can tell you that as far as frivolous ones that I have been involved with, I say it was pretty equal. There were times where I've seen some location owners be frivolous in what they were trying to contend that a master did, or I've seen masters just try to unnecessarily elongate a contract when it was clearly over and proper notice has been given. Unfortunately, these type of arbitrations, much like unemployment compensation, where you want to see what percentage, how many times the employer wins and how many employees, the appeals, nobody keeps really good statistics, and therefore many times the arbitrations are heard through an outside service. There's 4 different arbitration companies you can use, and not every one of them comes back to the lottery, and statistics are kept on master 1, location owner 1, etc. But I would tell you that I believe that the number of frivolous cases are clearly the minority, but I think it would be frivolous of me to say that it is mostly masters or location owners. I've seen it both ways, and I've been there, and I've seen courts actually. I think there was a Court of Appeals decision that said that a certain, I think it was in one case it was a master, in one case I believe it was a location owner, that they said this company seems to have a pattern, and they seem to elongate these things unnecessarily. And I'm glad that that was said, because I think it's had some good effect on that particular master and that location owner.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. With all that said, what is the will of the committee?
Move for a do pass recommendation.
We have a do pass. We have a second. Any questions, comments, thoughts? All right, all in favor, say aye. That means it goes to big committee. Thank you, Chairman. We'll see you probably tomorrow, I guess. Have a great day, guys. That ends our committee. Everybody have safe travels.